Now let's pivot into your own org's website ecosystem. One of the things that I find really interesting is when organizations post a role, it usually only shows up as like the page on the jobs page for, or, the entry on the jobs page on their website. And it ignores all the different channels that you're interacting with your community. You might have
Hmm.
a podcast, and like, what might a podcast episode be like if you're having a conversation around this role? Or maybe you have a live stream, and how might you bring in different voices from around the organization to have a conversation in a live stream that also allows you to connect with your community and hear from your community about this role? Or you have a blog. So like, what might a blog post look like when it relates to trying to find a director of programs? Like,
Hmm.
what would be useful? Might it be sort of highlighting the five things that you've done in the past year, or maybe the three things that are coming up in the next year, to provide some more nuance to what the role would be involved in? And then we'll shift to your social media later, but those are just some things that I've always found interesting, that you have all these channels and ways that people are engaging. You have your newsletter perhaps, and like, what might it look like if you start to employ those to help spread the word?
It's super interesting as we think about sort of a search as a marketing campaign, because often there's some tension in organizations that say, well, this is the activity of the organization, and job search is sort of one of those background functions. And so we don't want to, you know, um, what's the word? We don't want to muddy our kind of public face with talking about these job opportunities. But the employment brand is a really important piece. I think even growing now and more is, is the organization walking what it talking? Is the organization walking the talk, right? And so if you have these mechanisms that you use for other things in the organization, thinking about bringing that employment brand into the conversation is actually a really interesting sort of intersection for the organization. And so we're not saying that this would be, widely embraced. You may face some pushback, but there are ways to say, this is a really interesting way to sort of overlap the work we do with how the work gets done and the people that are doing that work. We've seen before, organizations who may post a recorded sort of webinar that allows people to ask questions about the role or the organization, and then that lives on the website, connected to the job, specific page, maybe. But if it lives on the website, then people can watch it at their own time. So if they're seeing the posting that shows up in a job board and they're directed to your website, they can actually click on that and have even more opportunities to learn about the organization or to hear questions from other, potential candidates or voices from different staff members.
One of the helpful reframings that I've found when you think about the job posting as a marketing campaign is, how can you slice and dice the job description into different things? What's a quote slide look like? If you were to
Mm-hmm.
pull a quote that would pique someone's interest, what might that look like? Katrina, yeah, I really love that example of the webinars. Like, we know organizations have run webinars for people who might be interested in the role. So after you get through that webinar, you likely have all of these questions that candidates have asked you that you might not have responded to yet. And so what might it look like if you turn that into a blog post where
Mm-hmm.
here's questions you might be interested in, or use those as quote slides, so that here's this question, here's the answer. To, again, people don't have a lot of time to sit down and always read the job posting, job description, or might need or intersect with it in ways that resonate. I'm always reminded of a quote that, of course, I can't remember who said it. My apologies to the person who said this. But the quote is, "We're but a moment in someone's day." We
Mm-hmm.
might think that we're like pushing this and like annoying people by sharing all this different information on different channels about the post, but like from our own experience, like, I mean, if you have used Twitter, or Instagram, or if you're on social media, or you're like flipping around for different articles, like you might only see it once. Mm-hmm. And so we are but a moment in someone's day. This search is but a moment in their day or their week or their month. And making it possible to spread the word in different ways helps, again, to get it to the right networks and people who have those knowledge, skills, and abilities and interest to then consider submitting an application.
One more thing I want to mention around using your own organization's website is that it's a great opportunity to put everything that applicants might need on one page. So if you've got a employment page or a work with us page, whatever you call it, and you can click on the opportunity and that opens a new page, that is also a great place to sort of, embed links to maybe other parts of your website if you've got an About Us tab, or to include the downloadable information package you might be creating, because that saves time and energy for people who might be interested. They may see that little snippet, that quote, they may be directed, to find the role. The first place, if they've seen it somewhere, recently, and they remember the organization, they'll go right to the organization and try to find that opportunity so that they can see as much as they can about it. So if you've got those embedded links that direct people right to this one place that has all this information, you're doing some of the work for them. I've worked with organizations in the past who have been like, well, it's all there. It's all on the website. So if they were looking for our vision or our mission, or they were looking for information about our team, it's all there. They just have to, take the time to find it. And what we're, I think, really saying and learning is that, the interest that you can sort of peak at these brief moments, these are those moments where people open up a little bit to read more about it. And so if they have to do all of the work in researching in order to show up for a screening call, that investment of energy may not be worth it for them. They may have other needs other demands on their time. They may have, just these couple of minutes to kind of get organized and show up and do that call or do that interview. And so really facilitating that ensures that you recognize that takes energy and attention, and that you're doing what you can to sort of meet them on that halfway point.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Katrina. And I often think about like just our own websites. And how, for example, when I worked at Fracture Atlas includes their audit and 990 on the website. And so if someone would need our 990, I would go there because sometimes it's faster to find it on the website than like, what folder is that in, on what drive? So I knew that the 990 lived on the website, and it was still a hunt every time I went to the website, be like, where exactly is that link again? So that's us knowing our sort of websites and our ecosystems, and that we know it exists to begin with, and we're still having to do that. So yeah, I think recognizing, like, put it all in one place, because I was working with an organization a couple of months ago, and they had an amazing video about that was made by their staff, but it lived on a different place of the website that was not at all tied to the job posting. And the chances of, like, the probability that someone would land on that video were so slim, because you had to like go to like the culture tab, and then you had to find like their events tab, and then this is where the video lives.